So, hello and welcome along to another edition of Isolation Interviews for Hospital Radio Reading and for my YouTube channel. I am super excited because today I have a super talented actor in the form of George Rainsford. George, welcome. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. There is so much to talk about. Obviously, you've done so many projects over the years. We'll talk a bit about things like Call the Midwife, Casualty. We will, of course, talk about your work in the Peter James plays because I'm a huge fan of those. But first, I wanted to kind of ask where it all began for you. And do you remember your kind of earliest memory of knowing that acting, performing was what you wanted to do?
I don't know if it was exactly what I wanted to do long term, but I do remember enjoying that buzz of an audience reaction to something that I was doing on stage. I think because I was quite small at school and I loved sport, but I didn't really get any kudos on the sports fields. And then I sort of fortuitously ended up doing one of the school plays because my biology teacher had thought I might be suitable because I'd done some kind of presentation. So I did a very prepubescent production of Grease in the late 90s, and I was basically about 2 foot smaller than all the other T-birds, but I got all the laughs. So I think that's where I got the bug.
And were people quite supportive? Because I know it's one of these sort of professions that some people can say, get a proper job and all that kind of thing. Was there pressures not to do it, or were you supported?
I was definitely supported. My mum was always encouraging me to go for it, but I think also people even back then knew it was a bit trepidous in terms of a career. So I was sort of encouraged maybe to think about doing a degree first and have something to fall back on. To be honest, when I give advice now to younger actors, I don't think that's necessarily the path you need to take, especially with all the sort of student fees and things. But it's what I did. And then I never really sat down and said, I'm going to be an actor. I think I just kept extending the possibility by, first of all, I auditioned for the National Youth Theatre when I was about 16. And I felt like I'd met my tribe, I suppose, by going down to London and spending 3 weeks with all these people from different walks of life and different ages and all that. Um, and that was my first sort of step up, I suppose. And then I suppose when I auditioned for drama school when I was at university, I'd made a decision in my head that if I did get in, I would go and I would pursue it. But even at that stage, I didn't think I necessarily would be an actor.
And I mean,
Even now, maybe.
another part of being an actor is that quite a lot of work is centered around London. Obviously, you're originally from sort of West Yorkshire, so is that quite a strange thing when you're having to relocate yourself and sort of move to new places that you maybe don't know that well?
Yeah, I mean, I think it used to be like that for sure. I mean, it was incredibly regionalistic, really. I mean, I had to jump on the train, obviously, to go and do auditions in London, and likewise, even when I went for drama school, all the main drama schools were in London, and yeah, there's definitely a focus to sort of move there. Um, and I think, yeah, you have to just get on board, don't you, with a big kind of cosmopolitan city like London. And from somebody who grew up in villages in Yorkshire, it was a bit of an eye opener.
I mean, we are nowadays seeing more productions away from London. It's not quite so London heavy nowadays. Do you quite like the fact now that you're getting to see more of the North and everything on our TV screens, and it's not always about the South?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, also, I mean, I've been doing lots of theatre in the last few years, and we have incredible theatres and an incredible sort of audience for that work all over the country, a real appetite for it. So it's definitely not a southern thing.
Now, obviously, I was just looking back at your kind of your work of the. I can't believe you've been in the industry now for about 20 years. I mean, has
I
that time
know.
flown for you? What's that been like?
Yeah, it has. I tell you what it is as well is, I mean, it's a classic thing when you get older, but you don't think you are your age. And I've just done a production of Dear England, the James Graham play with the National Theatre. And for people who don't know, it's the story of England football and Gareth Southgate's tenure. And obviously, all the lads who were playing the footballers were all in their early 20s. And we were chatting away in rehearsals about favourite tournaments or just football anecdotes. And I was talking to one of the guys who was playing Harry Kane about the 2002 World Cup, which was really poignant for me because I was a student. And he said, "Oh, I don't really remember that one." And I was like, "Oh, you don't? You remember the Michael Owen goal against Brazil?" And he was like, "Well, I was born that year." And you think, "Oh my gosh." Yeah. So 20 years has flown by. A large part of that was spent obviously doing Casualty actually, but there's been some great experiences, and there's been plenty of soul searching, moments of not working too, which is I think the life of every actor.
I mean, what would you say was the first role that you did where you realized that people started to know who you were and that your notoriety maybe grew? What was the first project that really kind of made you realize that, people knew who you were?
I think probably Call the Midwife. That was such an overnight success. I remember we all went for the read through for series one, and obviously I was thrilled to be amongst all these stalwarts of like television, like Pam Ferris and Jenny Agutter and all these kind of people. And the scripts read really well, but I don't think anybody in the room, maybe the producers, but I don't think anybody really knew how much people would take to it. And then it aired, and they were getting, I think, about 10 million on a Sunday night. And then I wasn't exactly people stopped me in the street, but I definitely felt that people had seen that show, and I'm sure it helped me open doors for things like Casualty in the future.
I mean, obviously that show is still going strong. People still love it.
Yeah,
What do you think it is behind the popularity and the success of Call the Midwife? I mean, it's probably hard to pinpoint, but what would you say it is?
I mean, I think it's a combination of things. I think it's amazing stories. I think it feels it's got elements of nostalgia, but it's gritty. It's heartwarming. I mean, it's harrowing. It's stories about real life. It's got amazing characters, and yeah, I just think it, people maybe originally thought it would only be watched by maybe women of a certain age, but it's absolutely not. It's a proper drama for everybody.
I mean, because obviously people may forget, but you were only in it for kind of a short period of time. But for you, is it still a show that you watch? Is it one that you think, you kind of not saying owe your career to, but it, like you said, it was that stepping stone. Is it something that you'll always be grateful for?
Oh, definitely. I mean, yes, I do. I dip in and out. I think it's in its 15th series now, and I was only in series one and two. So yes, it is a long time ago. And actually, I look quite boyish when I look back on it. But 100%, I was aware even then, especially going back for series two, that it was a really magical job. I love the fact that it was period and as I said earlier, just full of these amazing actors. And so yeah, I'm definitely grateful for that experience.
Now, obviously, we did mention it. Another show that you were a part of, Casualty, for I believe it was 9 years. You say. I mean, what are your memories of? I mean, first of all, how did that come about for you? How did you get the role on Casualty?
I mean, it was a very sort of formal audition process. I had a first round, followed by a sort of a recall up at Elstree, where I read in with Richard Windsor, who ended up being cast as my brother. But then after that, we actually both had to go to Cardiff before the decision was made for a screen test. So we basically shot a very small couple of scenes, but in full costume and makeup and with a proper sort of crew. Uh, and I did see another couple of boys there who were going in for Ethan. So it definitely wasn't mine at that point. But that took place over a couple of months. Um, I mean, I remember thinking it wouldn't go my way. I didn't feel I think up until then I'd always played roles that were even sort of pre-profession. And suddenly I was coming in as a junior doctor. I just didn't think I'd look old enough. But yeah, I mean, and nine, when you say 9 years, it sounds an incredibly long time, but again, it just flew by.
You must love it though that you get to really perfect your craft because the great thing with the continuing dramas is whereas with a lot of projects you'll focus in on a small story and you can't really expand on that, whereas with your soaps, your continuing dramas, you really get to continue with the character and really follow their journey. So you must love the fact that it's kind of like a different act, like a kind of different muscle to play with, as it were, getting to do that kind of style of acting.
Yes, and actually the nice thing is after a few months, the writers know how you sound and they can write with you in mind. And you don't have to wrestle with, oh, how might my character do or say this. It feels very natural because you know the character so well after a little bit. And the nice thing about a show like Casualty, maybe as opposed to some of the other soaps, is we have loads of guest artists coming in. So every 2 weeks, there's a sort of new group of people who you can, play out scenes with. So it kept it sort of fresh. And I was really lucky. I got some really great stories over the years. A lot of sad stuff, which was quite quite challenging. But yeah, it was wonderful getting to really explore all the different aspects of that character, and they really chuck some big stuff at you.
I mean, obviously, the other thing was you were there during the sort of the COVID pandemic when everything got shut
Mm.
down. How was that as an experience to get back into the world of acting with the whole new kind of normal at that time? What was that like?
Yeah, and I think obviously because we were a medical drama, I think people felt quite responsible to make sure that we highlighted all the work that the real NHS workers were doing. Particularly when we went back, we were still just out of lockdown. There was all sorts of protocols, obviously, that everybody in the country was having to do and deal with. For us, it was 2 meter distancing and bubbles and all that kind of thing. But so there was a sort of, we wanted a nod, to give a nod to COVID, obviously, and we did a coronavirus sort of special just to sort of, I suppose, celebrate the efforts by all of the NHS and tell some of the sad or moving stories that came out of that period. But then we had to kind of almost park it because I think people would have been, saturated by all the world around COVID, so that we couldn't give them too much as well. But yeah, it was an odd time, wasn't it, when you look back for everybody?
Now, I mean, if you were to have got the chance to sit down with your younger self when you first started at Casualty, do you think your younger self would have ever believed that you'd have been there for 9 years and kind of the storylines you'd got? How would that conversation have gone?
Yeah, I do often have that thought actually. Oddly, it's often when I'm working or just having a normal chat with an actor who maybe I knew when I was a kid. I mean, like off the top of my head, I mean, even Derek, really, who plays Charlie in Casualty. I grew up watching Casualty on a Saturday night, and if I'd sort of said to my 12-year-old self, "You'll be sort of acting with him for 9 years of your life," you just sort of go, "Oh, that's such a strange concept." I've just worked with Samantha Womack, who used to be called Samantha Janice, and I grew up watching her in like a sitcom called Game On, and I mean, it's just mad, really, that then sort of years later you're mucking about with her backstage. It's a strange profession for that.
I mean, talking about that, and I mean that you must come across that quite a bit where you meet idols or people that you've looked up to in your younger years. What is that like when you finally get to meet, but not just meet, you work with your idols, your heroes? What is that like?
I mean, normally you don't really acknowledge it because I think it's important to go in like on a level with them. But actually, I've also learned that it's quite nice to receive compliments if someone feels the need to give you one. And so I actually make sure that I do say something if I have a memory of that. And actually, I'll give you a quick example. I've just recently worked with David Suchet, and David Suchet, I grew up watching in Poirot and all that as well. But I have a really distinct memory of my mum taking me to London, where I had a National Youth Theatre audition that I mentioned earlier. And Amadeus was on at the Old Vic with David Suchet playing Salieri and Michael Sheen was playing Mozart. And it must have been 1999. And we got some cheap tickets, from like the Leicester Square half price booth and went and watched. And I was doing Mozart for my modern piece to audition. And so I was really, really watching Michael Sheen intently. But actually, I left thinking both of those two actors were just amazing. So David Suchet was, and that performance of his was very much like in my mind's eye as I sort of started to become a professional actor. And so when I met him recently, for the first day or so, I just sort of, chatted to him on a level, like I said. But then I did sort of, we were in the green room having a cup of tea, and I just thought, I'll just tell him, I'll say, listen, you were one of the chapters in my sort of early years of becoming an actor. And he was so sweet about it. He thought that was really touching.
I imagine it must be just such a pinch me moment, and also, like you said, I mean, I mean, has it happened to you? Have you had actors that have come to you and said, I love your work. I've, grown up watching you. Has that kind of table been turned yet?
I mean, yes, people are very sweet, especially if they're fans of Casualty. I think that's, often is a show watched maybe when you're early teens, perhaps with your parents or your grandparents, and it's that kind of age before maybe you'd go out on a Saturday night. And so you'll sometimes get people coming up to you saying, "Oh, I've watched Casualty since I was sort of 13 and I'm such a fan." And I've even had people say, "Oh, I became a doctor because I love that show so much, or I like your character so much." And that's really amazing.
It must also be quite, I say stressful because, I mean, unlike most sort of acting jobs, you've got to learn a script and all that, but there's also the whole medical jargon behind it all, which is like another language in itself. How do you manage that? How do you get those very complicated, very long words and nail them?
I mean, not easily to begin with, I'll be honest. But yeah, I suppose you have a brilliant medical sort of team around. We had an on-site nurse, medical advisors everywhere, and so often they would give you the right practical things to be doing, and that can really help actually, because then it becomes almost a bit like a dance, and you can look like you know what you're doing, which stops you worrying so much about how to pronounce everything. Yes, I mean, to be honest, not easily to begin with. I remember my first scene in Resus, which is where all the emergency and sort of highly dramatic medical stuff happens. And I was working with Sinetra Sarkar, and she was sort of pulling me to the side and saying, you've got this. It's this, this, and this. And I remember being terribly nervous, but we had lots of good medical advisors on set, and they would give you sort of quite practical things to do with your hands and movement and stuff. So I think it helps sell the story that you know what you're doing, even if you're struggling with the lines. And then, to be honest, it starts to become second nature. We'd often repeat quite a lot of certain procedures. I remember doing an awful lot of chest strains, and so I suppose you get better at it.
I mean, as I say, you obviously over years you get used to kind of the way it's done. I mean, did you kind of find that towards the end you'd kind of maybe found a kind of a knack or a way of learning them quicker, or was it just kind of you took each one as it came and treated it as a sort of a new word to learn, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah, it was about repetition. I think that's the only way you can learn, because you've got no real understanding of the complexity of that particular medical procedure, because obviously we're not trained medics. And so yeah, you try and get a basic understanding and then just have to drill it really.
Now, the other thing I wanted to talk to you about, which was something I loved, was seeing you in the Peter James plays. You obviously played DI Roy Grace. What was that like? Because you did two plays and both were fantastic, but such iconic plays written by the fantastic Peter James. What was that like to be a part of that?
Oh, fun! I mean, brilliant, as you say. I think also getting to do it again was really enjoyable, as you mentioned. But the first production I did, "Wish You Were Dead," it was a storyline where Grace was out of his comfort zone and he was on holiday, and it was a different angle for that character, because he was sort of the victim of the crime, and it was quite an emotional story. And then last year when I did "Picked You Dead," it was very different. It was more procedural and much more Grace back in Brighton, sort of doing his detective work, and so it was nice to get to play that more iconic version of the character as well.
I mean, because you actually got to meet Peter James as well, because he was around for a lot of the sort of press and promo you did. What was that like getting to meet him and speaking to him?
Yeah, I mean, amazing. He's such a raconteur as well. He's got so many stories. I think a big part of his of building those books, building the stories around that, is meeting people. So he's got amazing stories where he has really hung out with loads of criminals down in Sussex and asked them lots of interesting questions, and he's had some great experiences. And yeah, it was just he's great, and he was, as you said, he was around quite a lot. He's really enthusiastic about obviously the stories, but also about theatre, and then really enjoyed sort of catching up with everybody.
I mean, as well, last year I had the pleasure of speaking to Jodie Steele, who obviously was in it with you. You had an amazing cast. I mean, Jodie Steele, Fiona Wade. When I came to see it, you had Peter Ash as well in it. What was that like to get to work with that fantastic cast of people?
Yeah, yeah, brilliant. I mean, and touring is a particular animal, so it really is about the people you're working with. You're week to week in different venues, and yeah, we had a really good laugh actually. I'd already worked with Fiona. We did 222 A Ghost Story the year before, So that was really fun, getting to sort of play opposite her, but in a completely different relationship. In 222, we were husband and wife, and obviously in this, she was she was one of the victims of the crime, and obviously I was playing Grace, so that was very different. Yeah, really good fun.
Is that quite fun when you get to work with people and then, like you say, you work with them on different projects as well? They sort of it must because you don't really get that in other careers where you cross people's paths in other jobs. So that must be quite fun if you know you get on well with someone. When you see that they're going to be working with you on a future project, that must kind of be like a another sell to want to take that job on.
Definitely, yeah, absolutely. I mean, if the Grace uh, another play came up, it would be fantastic to know whether some of the same people were doing it. I've worked with Gemma Stroyan, who played opposite me as Bella in the last one, but in the Wish You Were Dead, she also played a different character in that, and she's done about six of these Peter James plays. And I have to say, if I found out she was doing it, I'd probably leap at the chance because she's such good fun.
I was going to ask whether you would do it again. I take it you would be tempted back if the right play came
I
along.
mean, it's hard to know, isn't it? It's hard to know. I don't even know what they're doing, but I'm sure they've got one in the planning because they usually do, and they seem to come out every couple of years. So watch this space, but I don't know at the moment.
Now, obviously, we've talked about you've done stage work, you've done TV work. Is there, I ask this question a lot and I love the answer. Is there a favorite for you, or do you love the fact that you can kind of jump between the two?
I think it's probably the latter. I think variety in any work is appealing, isn't it? Last summer I was doing Picture You Dead, and during the last fortnight I got a job in Father Brown, which was the cozy crime drama set in the Cotswolds, and somehow made it work by literally a couple of times having to jump in a taxi after the curtain call and fly all the way down to Moreton and Marsh and get up early and do a day on set the next day. And then I was jumped on a train and went all the way back and did the play again that evening. And you'd think that was knackering, and I suppose it was, but it was also just thrilling getting to do a bit of everything. Exactly why you want to be an actor. I was getting to sort of be on set, and I love working with all the different departments on a TV set. All the different crew, like your interactions with makeup and costume are also different. And I love the sort of dance of making it work with the sound or with the lighting and the camera and everything. And it really reminded me of working on Casualty, to be honest. And then it was great getting back on the train and going and meeting an audience again that evening. So yeah, I suppose both. I love both.
I mean, obviously, funnily enough, another guest I had on recently was the fantastic Mark Williams, who is fantastic in Father Brown. You must love getting to work with so many different people from different kind of areas of the acting world. What was he like?
Oh, was he? Oh, right. I mean, absolutely amazing. I loved him. He's obviously the main character in that show, but beyond that, he's really caring about the story and about the tone, because I think it's quite specific on that show. And so actually, you'd do a read through of a scene, and he'd have like not notes, but sort of ideas, I suppose, for everybody, because he was kind of thinking about everybody's through line for the episode. I just thought he was brilliant.
Now, I mean, obviously, as we sort of near the end, I just wanted to ask, you've had an amazing career. Is there a highlight? Is there a project that maybe means the most to you or that you felt most proudest of? What would you say is your highlight of your career?
I mean, I've only just finished on this production of Dear England, and I have to say it's definitely up there as one of the most enjoyable things I've done. I think we got really lucky. It's never an exact science putting a group of people together, but there was a very caring and supportive, but funny and silly group of people, and we all got on extremely well. And then I think sort of married to that was the fact that the play was amazing and really well received. James Graham obviously has written this huge sort of state of the nation play that's very funny and very accessible, and people really cared about. And so you'd sort of spend the day and the evening mucking around really with these people, and then the audience would stand up and whoop and clap, and you'd go to the pub afterwards and think, there's nothing really better than that.
And I mean, what else is in the pipelines for you? What can you tell us? What is next for you? What are you excited about?
I filmed on a couple of things I can't say too much about at the moment, but They'll be out later this year, and then I've actually got a bit more filming coming up for another series of something, which I'm not sure I'm allowed to say either. I'm really sorry, but yeah, so bits of screen work, and then beyond that, at the moment, I don't know. So yeah, quite exciting to see, but I don't know.
Now, as I say, it's been an absolute honor and a pleasure speaking to you. Before we go, though, what messages would you like to give, first of all, to the amazing NHS staff who work tirelessly, but also to the patients who are listening in hospital who maybe aren't having the best of times at the moment? What would you like to say?
Well, I mean, to the NHS workers, as you know, I've appeared in a fictional medical drama for a long time, and so have some understanding of, well, only through my research, I mean, of how incredible a job they all do, you all do. So, thank you so much. I mean, I'm merely a pretend version of your incredible efforts and talent, and really, in your profession, keeping the whole country sort of going. So, thank you. And anybody who's listening to this in hospital, I really hope you're better soon, and I really hope this gives you some distraction, perhaps. And I'm thinking of you all.
George, it's been an absolute honor and a pleasure. You are welcome back anytime. Of course, keep safe. And yeah, thank you again for your time.